If you zoom out far enough, a country stops looking like a collection of borders on a map and starts looking like a biological organism. This chart tracks the mean viability of the United States. In the year 2026, the organism's vital signs hit 3.55. On this diagnostic scale, anything below a 5 represents a state of complete systemic freeze, or collapse. The CAM scan model scans society as a metabolic network of 8 institutional organs, from the executive helm down to flow, the economic bloodstream. In the mid-20th century, this organism reached peak health, its metabolic heart and brain firing in perfect synchrony to dream and build. Today, that same body is in the equivalent of multi-organ failure. We have to look inside the scan to see exactly which structures broke apart over the last 25 years. When a biological system is under extreme stress, it diverts its remaining energy to a few critical priorities. The scan shows exactly where the American organism is routing its bandwidth. The strongest draw on the nation's energy is a node called flow. This represents the markets, the logistics networks, and the circulation of resources. Even as the surrounding structures degrade, flow acts like a racing bloodstream, relentlessly pumping resources at massive capacity. But look at the far right of this signed activation heat map. Since the turn of the millennium, intense activation has concentrated into 2 rows. One is flow, the other is shield, the military and security apparatus acting as the organism's threat-processing amygdala. This shift represents an organism that has become hypervigilant, governed by a security reflex that constantly scans the horizon for danger. A body that redirects all its calories towards threat detection and financial circulation will eventually starve its other vital organs. While the bloodstream races and the amygdala fires, the cognitive centers of the American organism are quietly failing. These charts track the health of specific parts of the system. Archive, the institutional memory, and lore, the prefrontal cortex that manages legitimacy, both show a steep, uninterrupted plunge starting around the year 2000. As these lines hit bottom, the society loses contact with its own foundational anchors. It is losing the capacity for shared, coherent thought. This is structural amnesia. The intellectual centers can no longer weave a unifying narrative for the whole. The diagnostic scan reveals a structural defect buried deep in the system's foundation, dating back over a century. At the base of the network is the hands node, representing the physical laboring body. In this morphology, hands is trapped in a chronic floor, permanently suppressed and starved of the system's cognitive light. This chart measures the effective energy available to each node. The red line at the bottom represents hands. For 96% of the entire 126-year timeline, the physical laboring body has remained submerged below the zero axis. This persistent structural disparity is why scientists classify the American morphology as a hands bottleneck. The American organism is a towering, active edifice built upon an amputated, repressed foundation. Stepping back to look at the total affective cognitive field, the emergent soul of the entire system, we see the toll of these intersecting failures. This top graph tracks the total emergent field. Years of structural amnesia and a repressed physical substrate have created internal friction that finally outpace the system's capacity to process stress. In 2026, the heart axis, the metric for available affective energy, cratered to negative 1,875. The society has consumed its own energetic surplus. It is running on the fumes of its historical architecture, unable to generate any new effective warmth. The current atmosphere of polarization and exhaustion marks the entropic heat death of the American organism. From a clinical perspective, a system in this state cannot be healed by accelerating its markets or treating surface-level political symptoms. For the American organism to survive, it must structurally integrate its repressed physical foundation and rebuild its institutional memory. Otherwise, its racing bloodstream will eventually consume the host.